Greetings, YouTube. I've got a bit of a divine light behind me today. I guess it's only appropriate I be discussing creationism. Now, as most people who are on the internet know, recently Bill Nye debated Ken Ham over whether evolution is or is not fact. And I'm going to link you to two different sources. One is an article that says that he feels that Bill Nye did the world a good deed by going to this debate, and another is a video by a fellow YouTuber here who thinks that debating creationists is pointless. And frankly, I'm of the opinion that it is pointless, because these two men came to have completely different conversations. It wasn't comparing apples to apples. It wasn't comparing apples to oranges. It was comparing apples to bicycles. There was no comparison. They were in completely different spheres of existence. So you can't have a debate. You can't compare an apple to a bicycle. There just is no comparison. And by making this a major social event, media event, an internet event, I feel that Bill Nye, a respected science figure, elevates creationism to the same level as he is. He gives Ken Ham gravitas simply because they were both in this debate together. And Ken Ham can then use that as ammunition in the future to reaffirm his worldview and to help reaffirm the worldview of those who follow him. Now, Ken Ham is in the minority. Most Christians do not believe in this. He is on very shaky theological ground. And Fred Clark from over on the Slacktivist has spoken about this shaky ground that young Earth scientists and young Earth creationists are on. It's not biblically sound, and it makes almost no sense whatsoever. It makes as much sense as celebrating the birth of Earth as October 24th, which I think it was 24th or 26th. I can't remember which. I think it was 24th. Yeah, my first wedding anniversary was 26th, so I think it was 24th. And it's just, it makes no sense. It's a waste of time, and it gives credence to creationists that they do not deserve. Now, having said that, and as I have said before, I am a proponent of evolution. I accept evolution as the best explanation for the world around me, the diversity of life in the world around me. I saw a graphic. It was a picture of the two of them in the debate, and it said, you know, the answers to these two questions. The question, what would it take to change your mind? And underneath it said, Ken Ham, nothing. He can't have his mind changed. And under Bill Nye it said, evidence. And that right there was supposed to have been a gotcha. Bill Nye wins. Bill Nye wants evidence. Except I think that that is an example of how both of them are wrong. Ken Ham is wrong because he is trying to replace science with faith. And Bill Nye is wrong because he's trying to replace faith with science. As I've said in the past, I'm a theist. These are not just decoration. They're holy symbols. And Ken Ham came there with the intention of speaking through the lens of theistic belief, spiritual experience, while Bill Nye came there to speak through the lens of scientific fact. And if you look at things through just one of those lenses, you will get a distorted view of the universe. But if you look through both of them, you will see reality in its full splendor. I know people are going to say that there is no way to reconcile that. That if you have a belief in the spiritual experience and the religious experience, that you cannot have a belief in science. If you have a belief in science, you cannot have a belief in spiritual experience and a religious experience. And I'm telling you that's bull. Many people have done it. The best explanation of how it's achieved would be Campbell's The Power of Myth, a book I recommend everyone to read. It was one of the most moving and powerful books I have ever encountered. There is no dichotomy between scientific fact and spiritual experience. And if you only have one of them, you are only looking at half of reality. And I know people are going to disagree with me, and that's okay. But if you only look at half of the reality, don't be shocked if you have a distorted view of it. And I feel that theists that ignore science and atheists that ignore spiritual experience have a distorted view of the universe. And when I say I've been an atheist, people, oh, that's BS. You were the wrong kind of atheist, or you weren't an atheist, or, oh, you said you're an atheist, that makes it all better. No, it doesn't make it all better. But what it does say is that I know the worldview that I speak of. I know what it was like to live in a worldview where I was only looking at reality through that one lens. And now I look at it through two. I look at the fact that something can have both a physical aspect to it and a spiritual aspect. The moon, particularly the full moon, is a physical manifestation of my goddess, in my opinion. I see the moon, I am looking at the face of my goddess. Right now, there is a rover rolling around the surface of the moon. Now, do I think that that rover is defacing the face of my goddess? No, I don't think that is. The moon is a physical object. It's a place. If I were to stand on it, I would not think I was standing on the face of my goddess. I would think I'd be standing on the moon, and it'd be pretty freaking cool that I was on the moon. Just as it's really cool that there's a rover rolling around there, right up there. I'm really hoping it starts another space race. But at the same time, the moon can have a symbolic spiritual meaning as in parallel to the fact that it is a physical object worthy of study and hopefully someday colonization. We have too many of our eggs in one basket. We really need to get to the moon and Mars. So something can have both a physical and a spiritual meaning, and there is no dichotomy, there is no confusion. There's only one if you make one. This is a lump of silver. That's it. Pretty. It also is a holy symbol. And for me, it's both. It's a piece of jewelry, and it's a holy symbol. And there is no confusion there. And I am often mystified when people can't see that. If Campbell can see it, and you can read Campbell's words, why can't most people see it? Why do most people on either side of this argument dismiss the greater complexity that is presented to you and the greater depth and breadth of reality when you look at it through both lenses? You see more with two eyes than with one. And I think that's really important to remember. So while I think that Bill Nye wasted his time, seriously, and did a disservice to science by doing it, he elevated Ham in a way that he shouldn't have been. Ham is an insult to Christianity, backing a position on such shaky theological ground that makes quicksand look solid. So I think that it was a waste of time. I think that we would have been better served by just telling Ken Ham no. We can't debate you on this because you don't believe in it, and you never will, because you won't accept evolution. And Bill Nye, he wants evidence. He's trying to use the scientific method to understand a spiritual and religious experience. You are doomed to fail by doing that. If you only have one tool in your toolbox, the whole world looks like a solution that can only be solved with that one tool. You need more than one tool. The world is not a nail, and the only tool you have is not a hammer. We have lots of tools, and we must use all of them. And one of the tools we can use to understand reality is faith and spiritual experience. So I think the debate was uncalled for. It wasn't a debate. It couldn't be a debate. People have said, well, maybe it'll convince one person or two people to change their minds. Maybe it will. But I think the ammunition has lent Ken Ham's going to do more harm than that good. It's good that a few people may be less ignorant than they were. But how many people are going to be bolstered now because of this debate? That's distressing to me, depressing. So I'm interested in hearing, what do you think? Was this a worthy debate? Do you think Bill Nye did us a service or a disservice? Do you think that Ken Ham is on shaky theological ground, or do you think he's a mainstream Christian? I'm interested in hearing. And I'm interested in hearing if you understand that you can have both faith and science and have a rich and full experience and not be confused by either. Because I am an adherent of my gods, and I am an adherent to science. And I find no dichotomy there at all. I never have. So, I look forward to your comments.